Hey, Joe, you want to hear a joke about my penis? Don't worry, it will take too long. Joe, you know what I hate most about Russian nesting dolls? Russian nesting dolls? They're full of themselves. They're full. Those are the dolls that you put inside a doll that goes inside.
I want to hear the penis joke.
It takes too long.
But I want it.
Welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
Joe?
Where do we stand on acronyms this week? Am I going to be able to say anything, or are we still on that?
We're good.
Okay. All right. Have you had a good week, Joe?
No.
Okay, fantastic. No one cares anyways. Let's get right to it. Joe, Endgame. How many times have you seen it since we've last talked?
Since we've last talked, I forgot it was a movie.
Oh, I wish I was kidding, but it's still, I don't want to say nonstop on a loop. My little guy has fallen down a rabbit hole of another kind of, in the same vein, but he's gone off the rails a little. I will.
On the crazy train?
Going off. Now this song's going to be in my head the whole show.
Just for 5 minutes.
The whole show. The back-to-back Endgame and Infinity War Endgame is over 6 hours. And it just plays on a constant loop. And it doesn't play on a constant loop because it does it automatically. I have to manually go back. And management the other day, there was a line that was coming up that I really loved. And I kind of put up my hand so I could hear it. And she's like, really? Hey, you can rewind it. But it's like a song that you have on your 8-track in your van, but when you hear it on the radio, you still why is it more enjoyable when you hear Weird Al on terrestrial radio than?
Because you know that you're sharing that moment with someone else.
Is that what it is?
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
that feeling of being part of a live event.
I cannot stop watching it. And it's funny, it's like the little guys watch these. Is it called Hishi? That website that they do how it should have ended or realistic movie trailers.
Oh, honest movie trailers? Honest trailers? I don't know anything about the guys who do that, but go on.
They have how the movie should have ended. And it's true. They come up with all these really, no matter what the movie is, and in this case, it's like, okay, so when all of a sudden Captain Marvel shows up, why didn't she just take the gauntlet from Peter Parker and fly into the stratosphere? None of them can fly. None of, Thanos' people could fly, but they had this big thing where they had to, get it to the van and all this stuff. And why didn't she just, because she could, moments before, fly down from outer space, crash through his ship, crashing one to the ground, grab the gauntlet and just fly right back up there. It's like, and I'm like, stop making sense.
Yeah, I had that sort of idea about Star Wars, the original one, where they had to wait to pass Yavin 4 to activate the Death Star. It's like, why couldn't they just blow up Yavin 4 and then you got a clear shot to...
Right.
It's like, what are they, charging by the laser?
Yeah. Oh, that's an escape pod. Don't bother firing.
There are no life forms in that pod. What do we want to charge by the laser?
So I am still watching that. So the wormhole my little guy's fallen down. His favorite character in the MCU is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So we had gone to see Far From Home. We own Homecoming. So he's rewatched everything a half a dozen times in the last week that he's in, but he found out through the interwebs there's other Spider-Man. So on either Netflix or Hulu or one of them, Spider-Man 3 is on it for free, but I wasn't buying Spider-Man 1 or 2 because they still want $20. So I surprised him by letting him know, the library still has movies.
It's like a nice 80s PSA that you gave him.
Right, exactly.
Go to your local library. You can rent movies for free and video games. Don't tell them about the video games.
No, because we don't Well, that's
We don't need it. Yeah, you could be lending your games out to other people.
at that point. I don't know if I've told you. I've turning your place into a Blockbuster for retro games. So if you get a bunch of people knocking at the door.
Right.
But speaking of, what did I send you this week that I saw at GameStop? And I'm like, that tiny little...
It was the NES Classic.
And it plays those games behind me, those ones there, or do you need different carts?
Oh, it doesn't play games. It's a miniature, like, Raspberry Pi computer.
Oh, but it just looks like... Okay.
Yeah, right. That's the thing that Nintendo put out a couple of years ago. We've talked about it, I think, at least 60 times on the
didn't
podcast.
actually... I've never actually seen one in person.
Oh, yeah, I'll show you when I go upstairs. Well, I have because I have that NES Classic, and I also have the SNES Classic that came out a year or two later. They both make nice shelf items.
Well, I saw it was like $50, and you're like, yeah, let's go for 83 on Amazon.
Yeah, because Nintendo stopped making them and supplying them to retail stores. So when they were in the stores, they were going for 60 new, and but then the limited supply kind of thing. And it's not like when they first came out like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I forget. They underestimated the demand, so they didn't make enough, and a lot of scalpers bought them up, 2 at a time or 3 at a time, however many were actually supplied to one single store, and then they would sell them on eBay for 3 times the amount because they were retro and there was a market for them and supply and demand. Then they made a second wave, and it was still popular. It wasn't as scalpable as it used to be because they made more of them, and I think maybe the interest maybe have waned a little bit, but now they're all gone. So who knows? Maybe they'll. There's a lot more. I guess we're getting into the video game section now because you've triggered me. No, but they're making a Sega one that's coming out. Sega. I guess like an official Sega one, and they have cheesier Sega emulators in stores like in Target where you can play an actual Sega cartridge, plus you can also play their built-in games. But this one is going to be like sanctioned. I guess it's a better version of their better library of Sega games, and that's going to be coming out I think this year, probably for like around the $60 point. TurboGrafx is coming out with one of those. You don't know what that is, but there's one right behind you at about 5 o'clock. There it is. Underneath the Xbox controllers. It was more popular in Japan, but it came out around the same time as the Sega Genesis. It was like the redheaded stepchild of video game systems. It still made a bunch of cool games, but it wasn't nowhere near as popular as Nintendo or Sega. But they're making one of those miniature models, and and Sony tried to do that recently with the PlayStation Classic that retailed originally for $99. Didn't sell well. Then it retailed for $59. Now it retails for $19. Yeah. I think there's like pallets of them. There's like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse full.
Man. Does it come with a free copy of the E.T. game?
Different system. But so thanks for thinking of me about the NES Classic.
Well,
I have one.
I wasn't sure if it was a thank you for thinking of you or how dare you offend me, sir, and not think I already had one of these. How dare you?
Well, I didn't have one originally, but then when the second wave came out, I said, you know what? I'm gonna waste my money.
So, Spider-Man. So I go to the library.
Wait, I got to edit that whole part out. Okay.
No, not even a little bit. So now my little guy's a little confused because the old Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire, shoots webs from his body. He doesn't need any devices to shoot him, but the Tom Holland does, and it's like, and then we blew his mind. It's like, well, there was also another guy in between Tobey Maguire, and I had forgotten. The MCU was well underway, and they only did 2. They were supposed to do 3, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man. But I think the Sony owned it, or still does, and I think wanted to capitalize on what was happening with the MCU, but at the same time, the MCU didn't want there to be 2 competing Spider-Man. So they somehow made some deals like, okay, well, we'll throw him into, that's how he got mixed into the Civil War thing. But it was just less than 2 years from the Andrew Garfield second one. And then they scrapped the third one. And
Well, the thing about Spider-Man, as we know in Spider-Verse, is that there are multiple variations on Spider-Man. So that was the Amazing Spider-Man. So I guess that's an alternate universe of Spider-Man.
And because I was saying that because when we were at the library and I was showing them, and they have a pretty extensive comic at the Tingsboro Library, and it's like they have the definitive storyline from the Amazing Spider-Man and the definitive storyline from the Spectacular Spider-Man. And so, as you know, you probably know, Joe, and everybody who knows us, I don't think it's that big of a surprise. We have a number of Spider-Man outfits at the house, like full-on outfits. And he's gotten back into wearing costumes, which I love. And so we're somewhere the other day, and he's, like last Friday when I came here, he was full on Spider-Man. Well, he came downstairs, and he's like, you might be mad, but I want to show you this. And he put on one of his Spider-Man masks, and a third of the face was like torn off by his eye, and you could see like most of his jaw and mouth. And I'm like, what happened? But he goes, well, remember at the end of the movie when like Venom like beats him up and like you can see his face? So he took one of his masks. So when he was playing, he started with a regular mask, but then switched it to the
Spider-Man 3 ending.
Yes.
Okay.
The Spider-Man, right.
All right, Spider-Man 3, right? Tobey Maguire with Venom.
And who played Venom?
Yeah, Topher Grace.
Exactly. Which I completely forgot. I literally forgot.
It was great because I think when Tobey Maguire was a known person, but I would always look at him as sort of like almost like a Michael Cera, Jesse Eisenberg thing.
Right. Where have you seen both in the same room?
Right. And I think the same thing happened with Toby and Topher. Toby, Topher. Toby, Topher. Uma, Oprah.
Then, and there's a big thing. There's two actors. One of them is Darren McDermott. I can't remember.
Oh, Dylan McDermott.
And who's the other one that?
I remember. Yeah. Well, that was a Saturday Night Live sketch, wasn't it? It was like, Kenan Thompson was the host, and it was three black contestants who had to say, is it Dylan McDermott or McDermott?
And both those guys were in on the joke, which I love.
Yeah. I forget the other actor, but yes.
So the point is, watching a lot of Endgame, a lot of Infinity War,
and white people look alike.
A lot of Spider-Man. It's not funny that you say that, but I guess, and I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead. So you heard this week that a lot of people are. Some people on the other side political spectrum, like Ted Cruz, are upset that people have posted listings online of people supporting Donald Trump. And the guy who was the chairman of the MCU or of Marvel, huge donor. And so the management is reading this article, and truly, I guess they released a bunch of memos that he had put out. And remember in Iron Man 1, they changed War Machine. They changed his best friend. It was,
it was Terrence Howard.
And now it's Don Cheadle.
Well, Terrence Howard wanted like Robert Downey Jr. money.
Right.
And they said, hello, Don Cheadle.
Right. And do you know why the chairman of Marvel okayed that?
No.
No one will be able to tell. They all look the same. That's his...
That wasn't a memo.
Actually put it in a memo saying nobody will be able to tell the difference.
That's great.
Like, okay.
I think you know somebody personally who has a similar outlook.
Yes. No names mentioned. We know somebody who didn't like the Black Panther movie because they couldn't tell them apart. And it's surprising that it's a mid-60s white guy from a rich town.
You don't want to stereotype people, but sometimes,
yeah, old rich white people sometimes suck. I'm talking to you, John. Let's see.
That's why I'm not going to be rich or old.
Right.
Wink, wink.
So I've been reading from a couple different places. The actor Carl Urban, who played Bones in the Star Trek franchise, he has, I don't know if he was given to it personally or how he came about it, but he's been pushing really hard a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek script that he says they would be insane not to do.
Just the screenplay.
Right.
Somebody else would direct, but it would be Tarantino's screenplay.
I don't know if but he was saying...
Because Tarantino has a limited amount of movies left that he said he was going to direct. I think he's got 2 movies left since the recent one just came out to rave reviews.
Yeah, but then again, don't forget... Silent Bob has retired a couple times,
Yeah, but you never know. I guess you do never know. But that's interesting. I didn't hear that there is a Tarantino Star Trek script floating out there.
And one of the primary characters, he didn't say, look, what J.J. Abrams done was trash, but he's like, this is amazing. They'd be insane not to move forward with this.
That'd be interesting because I wonder what direction they're going with in those Star Trek movies. Do you know anything about the 4th possible Star Trek movie? I mean, are they taking a break from that? I mean, I don't know if there's they made the 3 movies. They made Beyond and Into Darkness, which was
which one was the Into Darkness?
That was Khan.
I thought that was okay. But how funny is that there's Doctor Strange and Gamora, two of the top 5 characters in that movie. Gamora.
I just watched a movie the other day with both Captain Kirk and Catwoman.
What was it?
Princess Diaries 2 with Anne Hathaway and Chris Pine.
Did they? I never saw that.
Oh yeah, it's the sequel to Princess Diaries 1.
I don't think I saw that.
It's nice. Julie Andrews actually sings a little bit in that movie. So yeah, whatever. You over there with your heterosexuality, you don't appreciate such things, but some people do. But anyway, okay, great.
Yeah,
so
it's been a while since they've done a Star Trek. And honestly, is it because Christopher Pine is a little busy and that Zoe, what's her last name?
Saldana.
It's busy. And
there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, they got other things. They do have other projects. JJ he's directing the new Star Trek, right?
Correct.
I mean, Star Wars, right?
I mean, that guy simultaneously, he directed, The Force Awakens and Star Trek in a 18-month period of time, rebooted the 2 biggest, sci-fi franchises ever.
Cinematically, right. So, but I don't know, maybe Star Trek, maybe they're thinking more TV oriented now because they have Discovery and Picard and, there's that CBS app and, maybe they're trying to make money off of that. I don't know what they're thinking, but...
you can't have enough Star Trek for that version. I've other than Next Generation, I've never jumped on another of the Star Trek bandwagons. And not for any, I don't know why.
Right.
But either way.
Okay.
But I would. I'd like to at least read the script.
Damn it, Jim! I'm a doctor, not a fucking physician. Yeah, I like to hear. Yeah, I would like to hear Bones say the N-word. That's see how that goes.
Well, if it's Quentin Tarantino, there's a really
the joke, son.
Really good chance.
That's the joke.
Has he done a movie that hasn't had that?
Let me check the world. Nope.
No.
Maybe True Romance.
I still remember the first time I saw Django Unchained. It's like every 4th word had to be that.
Confession: I have not seen Django. I think the last movie of Tarantino's that I've actually seen was Inglourious Bastards. I hadn't seen Django. I hadn't seen Hateful Eight.
My business is killing Nazis. Business is good.
Right. I do want to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
I do too.
Let's go after the show.
Done.
Great.
So, all right. So now...
Hope you like feet. You know about that?
No.
Oh, Tarantino has a penchant, by penchant I mean fetish.
Okay.
Of putting feet in his, particularly women's feet in shots, prominent shots in his movies. And apparently, this movie does not disappoint.
Okay. If you're a foot guy.
If you're Tarantino. Okay. Yes.
So not sure all the pop culture. Oh, no. There's one more thing. How many memes, when I put this on the rundown, that lunch table meme that's been going around, how many different versions have you seen this week?
I stopped caring after 2.
Yeah. And the first few that I responded to, I always put, I'll be at the nurse's office for lunch period with a tummy ache. I don't know. It's when something like that takes off, it's like,
Yeah, it's an instinct to want to not join in.
yes.
Although I did that with FaceApp. I was right in there with FaceApp, man. God damn it, those Russians got me.
They really did.
Yeah, and quick.
But when you sent that picture to me, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what Joe's going to look like in 3 years.
Especially with this administration.
Oh! Okay, now that we're done with this, let's get into the real news stuff for the week. Awful. Like, since I left here last week, it was awful. Like, the mass shootings just
Keep piling up.
and
We're number one. USA.
But finally, well, the one in El Paso where it was
Wait, is it El Paso or Toledo? I forget. But it's El Paso, I guess.
we'll get to that.
Oh,
in
I'm
a
sorry.
second.
Skipping ahead.
No, not skipping ahead. It's like I forgot to even put that. It was so
I saw El
fucking
Paso
upset.
and I wrote Toledo on my paper.
So in El Paso, it was a white supremacist who truly drove 8 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours from Central Texas down to El Paso just to shoot Mexicans. Had his whole manifesto, like posted it, and then went in and committed the crimes. The awful. And we've been saying for years that nothing ever happens, like after Newtown or whatever, and then after Parkland and how activated those kids were, and that movement that started. This is beyond awful. The only things is like finally people are coming right out, including Beto O'Rourke, saying yes, the president is a white supremacist.
And
The conversation, I think, is changing, and to the point where people aren't afraid of saying, more and more people are calling out the Mitch McConnell for not doing anything about this, not calling the Senate back.
give him a break. He's come around next month.
Did you see the footage? Like he was at like some function, like some jamboree, and was drowned out by Moscow Mitch chants and stuff like that.
I think I saw that.
That made me very, very happy. But yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing about the coverage of this shooting is people are finally, this is the first time I remember people actually calling this a terrorist attack.
Yep. Yeah. And you know what? Samantha Bee's show, Full Frontal, I watched that this week. And she did a pretty good piece, a really good piece on how there was it was like in the 90s, there was a domestic, after the Oklahoma City bombing, there was this domestic terrorism, I forget what the name of the organization was, but it was a government organization basically meant to focus energies on finding out where these domestic terrorists are popping up in our country.
Being radicalized.
Yep. And they were gearing up and getting things together, and they were supposed to meet on September 11th, 2001 to there was like a big meeting that they were going to do, and then something happened. Something major happened on September 11th, 2001.
You didn't get to return a video to Blockbuster.
That was my 9/11. So then that went away, and then it didn't come back up again until 2013 under the Obama's second term. And now with Trump in office, this administration immediately nixed.
Yep, cut all the funding.
Yeah, cut all the funding to it. So now that makes it a lot easier for shit like this to brew under the radar, and harder for government officials to see where this stuff is coming from. Over.
So the kid, 19-year-old white kid, those you should be profiling your son and everyone down the line.
Oh yeah.
And he sends his manifesto from the parking lot and then goes in, and it was 8 or 9 time, quotes Trump verbatim in his thing about the invasion and all of this stuff.
Infestation.
And still the administration's not backing down from, and every time every time something awful happens, this piece of shit finds a way to make it worse. Like we talked about when he finally went to Puerto Rico and was throwing paper towels at people. So you saw the photo op. So, probably the worst story, of this is mom and dad with an infant baby. I don't think the baby's 1 year old. Dad got shot. Mom throws the baby on the ground and throws herself on top of the baby, and she gets shot, literally saving the baby's life. The baby has some broken bones. And if you see the piece of shit first lady and piece of shit husband of hers holding the baby, smiling like it's this big... Somebody told them politicians shake hands and kiss babies. Make sure you smile big. It's like, it's the creepiest fucking smile.
Yeah, he makes James Holzhauer look like Julia Roberts.
That face is scary, but the absolute lack of sympathy. This baby is not a prop. It's not, its parents.
He is.
Its parents are dead because of the rhetoric and the hatred that you have spouted.
Was that in Dayton? Because he visited the hospital in Dayton, right?
Right, where he was asked not to go.
He was welcomed with open arms. They kept the press out, and they filmed that little fucking
commercial
puff piece that they put on the White House website or Twitter. Yeah,
it was that date, and like Joe has already referenced it. It is, you are such a piece of shit that you get the city wrong.
And he's reading off a prompter. And there's a photo of the prompter side where you can see it says in Texas and Ohio, and he saw T and O on the same line, and somehow conglomerated that into Toledo.
Dimension. I love that the state senator and even the mayor who said, look, our first responders. The Dayton mayor.
Yeah. By the way, I have to keep making sure that Jacques, when he says the mayor, that he gets the name of the city that the shooting occurred in correctly, because there were two cities. So just making sure that we're talking about the Dayton, Ohio mayor. Go on.
And she had said, our first responders are spread thin. We don't have the resources right now for you to come here. Please don't come here. And then she made a joke like, well, maybe he'll just go to Toledo anyways. And the same thing, down in El Paso.
And by the way, he goes on Twitter that same day. I think in between going from Dayton to El Paso.
From the flight, yeah.
He blasts the mayor of Dayton. He blasts all these other Democrats down the line.
Instead of it's... Look, we all think George W. was a piece of shit, only because he was. But at least on 9/11, his people around him had the wherewithal to have him go to a mosque and say, it wasn't Islam that attacked us. It was these fuckheads. He had the clarity, when...
do we even have to go down this road? I mean...
We do a little bit because it's just... I don't know how many times you saw it this week when different news channels were talking about exactly what we are right now, where this awful event happens, and instead of being a uniter, instead of coming to common ground, he makes it worse. And people,
no, the New York Times put that headline: Trump calls for unity versus racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they changed the headline for the later edition, and it was I forget what the new headline was, but yeah, they I don't know what to think anymore about coverage of this.
But did you see they kept playing, and I think it was a Charlotte shooting when Obama went down to Charlotte to meet with the people at the church in the town, and he gets up to the podium and he sings Amazing Grace. It's like that. That's one of those moments where, and so many people have set this across the Twitterverse that I follow. Man, I miss having a president.
And yeah, you can say, "Oh, big fucking deal." You can sing. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal, but that's what a fucking president that's part of what a president does. Not everything a president does is sitting at his desk, calling out orders, signing things in the law, making executive decisions. A lot of it is going out and doing things that really not only look like they're helping people to heal, but are actually helping people to heal.
And when Bloatus finally has to give that speech, talking about denouncing white supremacists, and he's reading off the teleprompter. And it's true. You can tell when he's reading something he doesn't want to be reading. It looked like a hostage video.
Well, you can tell because when he's at a rally, he never has to take even a breath. Right. But when he's reading off a prompter, like he's, eat your fucking vegetables, Mr. President, read off this prompter. And I just want to say that white people can be bad too. And he makes that sniff. He's inhaling, breathing deeply between each awful sentence that he has to regurgitate just to...
It pains him.
Yeah. Like it's really, literally might be paining him.
So he's down in El Paso 4 days after the shooting. While in El Paso, on the way to El Paso from Dayton or Toledo, still in question, and he's picking fights with absolutely everybody who says he isn't perfect. The biggest raid in U.S. history was being enacted. So the biggest targeting of Latino people in the history, a mass murder, a systematic shooting carried out by a deranged lunatic inspired by him while he's going down there to heal this community, 800 miles away in Mississippi, the biggest raid that ICE has ever done. The last time, the second biggest raid ever was also in Mississippi, like 10 years ago. Like, I've been to Mississippi. I shot at the movie there. I was there for like 8 weeks. It's not a huge immigration, community. It's not like Southern California or Southern Texas.
Well, they must be doing their job then.
But the worst part is they didn't communicate this raid with like local community, or not that you would communities, but they didn't go to the schools and say, hey, these kids' parents might not be coming home today.
Well, it's August.
No, it was the second day of school.
Oh,
it was the second day of school.
Oh,
and I was listening. Yeah. I was listening to the superintendent from that town. There was like 16 or 17 children who didn't have anybody to come and pick them up. And
oh, right. There's that video of the girl crying on the steps saying, like, where's my father?
Right.
And, yeah.
But that's what it was.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then, and granted, I'm not sure what side of the aisle that superintendent is on, but he's like, well, we're blessed to have a community that came together, and like the 24-hour fitness is letting people use that as a shelter, and people are coming with bags of food. It's like, great. Where is this American citizen's parents? These kids, most of the kids that were left without their parents are U.S. citizens. We're born here. This
Anchor
is their
babies.
country. Well,
I don't have my father.
Apparently not. Right. And again, just when you think an awful situation. So he's in El Paso saying, calling for unity and saying that white supremacists are bad, while you're raiding, like just attacking this community again. And, to make matters worse, these are American citizens, these kids. But the people who own the food production plant worked with ICE in exchange for themselves not getting fined or charged.
Ooh.
So that's how they get you. That's how they knew who to round up when they went in there. That's how they didn't accidentally get other brown people who happen to be citizens. They were able to target and get the undocumented workers because the factories worked with ICE. And the factory owners, they could have said, hey, maybe you should have her sick out. Jose, maybe don't come to work tomorrow. Stay home with your child so when she comes home from school, because it was the second day of school. And a lot of these kids, and again, listening to the superintendent, a lot of these kids speak Spanish in the house. This is the kindergarten, it's the first grade, it's the second grade. Kids who English isn't their primary language are now literally being left at a school where they don't know anybody, don't know the language, but yet...
I mean, what do they care? They're going to get shot in 5 years.
Right, exactly. Well,
oh my God! I really want to just jump in front of a bus.
Well,
being driven by a Mexican.
But at least it wasn't the Latino population this week that was treated like shit. Please tell me you did see the photos from the arrest made in Galveston, Texas, with the two mounted police.
Oh yeah.
So you did see Django and Shane. essentially.
No, he was chained.
So anyone who hasn't seen it, 2 mounted police, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, those are policemen on horses, arrested
Horsey cops.
a horsey cop, arrested a, like mid-30s black dude who is homeless, schizophrenic, whose family has been looking for him for 2 years. And instead of calling a squad car, I don't even know the infraction why they decided they had to haul him into the police station. And by haul him in, they handcuffed him, tied a rope to him, and led him on horseback down the streets of Galveston, Texas, to the police. Made him walk to the police station
While tethered to 2 horsey cops.
And honestly, look, when we all said, and it wasn't even a joke, but we all said when the slogan "Make America Great," it meant before 1963, before the Voters' Rights Act, before Martin Luther King's speech. They wanted to make America great. They wanted to take us back to 1963. No, they want to take us back to 1863.
Yep. Yeah, we live in a hellscape. And thanks to the advent of cameras on everybody's phone, now more people get to see how awful this country really has been for a long time.
So you and I are the mounted police. I would hope that you would either say to me, or I would say to you, okay, Joe, we got this hardened criminal. We're fucking heroes, but maybe we should call a squad car to come and get him.
No, he'll take all the credit.
Because the optics of this aren't going to be we're not going to be riding in there treated like heroes with flowers coming down from, the saloon above.
Look, we tied him up right, all right? We tied him around his waist. It wasn't around his neck. What more do you fairies want? Whoops.
Welcome to America. And seriously, it's just every time I turn around, it's just, and now we are going to, I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about it now, but let's just talk about it now. Walmart has stepped up. Walmart has said enough is enough. These mass shootings, this mass shooting happened at our store. It hit home. It hit our shoppers, our people. Enough is enough. We're going to do something.
Thank God. What do they do?
Well, you tell me, Joe. You read it. I don't even know if I can say it. It's so stupid.
So apparently Walmart has taken the executive action of banning the showing of gun violence in video games in their stores, but are still going to continue selling guns. So wait, it's baby steps. Really, it's baby steps. You can't just jump head first all willy-nilly into this gun control thing. You got to ease into it.
Video games and guns. Is this the first time we're ever hearing this? This is new.
This is not new.
It's not new.
No.
But do they play video games in Japan?
I let me check with the world. Yes, they do.
Mass shootings?
They are, I think, number 1 in the world in mass shootings.
Okay, right behind, let's say.
Oh wait, Japan.
Japan.
Oh, I thought you meant the U.S.
No,
I'm
Japan.
sorry. Okay, no, Japan. Very, very, very little, very few.
But so they don't play video games there.
No, they play lots of video games.
But I don't understand that.
So here's the deal. So I guess a country that plays a lot of violent video games, if there aren't a lot of guns around, can't go around shooting a lot of people. And I think maybe one has nothing to do with the other. So I don't know. It's in the mix. Look, the government's got it under control. Why are you so worried? Why are you so nitpicky about all of this? Let Walmart and Trump do their thing.
And we remember the first mass shooting, when under this administration, and Blotus is sitting there, and I will never forget, Dianne Feinstein is beaming, sitting next to him as he's saying, "No, we gotta do something. Background checks, common sense." And he points to a bunch of people in the room. It's like, "I know you're all afraid." Pointing to the Republicans, the NRA. I'm not. I can do something. Blah blah blah.
And he stuck to his guns until the next day.
That same day, Wayne LaPierre.
Who was Wayne LaPierre? For those who don't know,
he is the head of the NRA.
Is he still, or he was? Or is he being phased out?
Well, no, because after these 2 shootings this week, guess who was on the phone with Blotus?
Oh, okay. All right, so I guess I'm just not paying attention.
There's some kind of, some turmoil over at the NRA and stuff like that, and there's still a power struggle. But he's the one who got on the phone with Blotus. But yeah, when Blotus had made that thing, and if you look it up, it's like, it's like, here's Dianne Feinstein, like, and she's beaming, like, this is what I've been saying for 20 years. Finally, here's a president who will force it through. He has the House. At the time, he had the House and he had the Senate.
A Republican president.
House and Senate. But he was saying, yeah, it's ridiculous we don't have background checks and all of these things.
Record scratch.
So it is.
And then that changed.
Yeah, exactly. The whole world is better now. So, anyways, I don't even know if I want to talk about it much more, but, at least people are finally saying it's white supremacist. This is a terrorist attack. Even though our intelligence agency, we're not even going to talk about that. You probably followed that today. Like, the top 2 people are leaving. Our State Department's been gutted. Our intelligence department is gutted.
There's a lot of acting this and a lot of acting that in government.
A lot of people who've been in positions for 20, 30 years who are like, yeah, fuck this. Mm-hmm. But at least all but state-run television is finally starting to call it terrorist attacks.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. At some point, now I was going to say at some point, truth will, shine bright and, make itself present and unavoidable. And nah, that's bullshit. It's just, they'll just lie around it until that becomes the truth. Where's that rickety stool and rope? God damn it. Anyways, but don't worry. We ain't going to leave you hanging. You're going to be listening to a defunct sponsor this week.
Keebler introduces the appealing taste of baked potato skins in a crunchy new chip.
New potato skins got baked potato appeal, because they're made with potatoes and skins that are real.
The Keebler elves make new potato skins with real potatoes and real potato skins for a flavor with whole baked potato appeal.
Cheddar cheese and bacon, sour cream and chives, tasty baked potato, you won't believe your eyes. They're made with potatoes and skins that are real. New potato skins from Keebler, baked potato appeal.
All right, now on to sport. The only Red Sox thing that I think I've paid attention to all year, I saw on Twitter the other day that said, "Man, the Red Sox must hate when children eat," and it was a screen grab because for a few years the Red Sox have this promotion with the big chain restaurant here in is it Massachusetts or New England, the 99?
It could be New England, but I think it's mostly Mass.
So this restaurant called the 99 where you get a free kids meal the next day after the Red Sox win and they've lost 9 games in a row. And I don't know anything about the Sox. I just know they suck right now. And I saw that screen grab and I thought, yeah, let's talk about that in sport because that's funny.
That is funny. We used to take advantage of that back in the good old days in 04 and 07.
Did you?
Yeah, we would eat at the pre-allergy knowledge. We used to eat out at restaurants, and the 99 was right around the corner from where we used to live in Somerville. And yeah, we were just like, kids eat free, and I think I passed as a 5-year-old kid.
I did that a couple years ago when we first got back. I heard about that. Red Sox had an afternoon game, won. I'm like, oh great. We were in Wilmington at the time. There's one by my sister's. It's like, let's go there. And we went there, and they're like, oh, no, it's the next day after they went. I'm like, oh, fuck you.
Right. It's not day of.
Well, I know that now. So the Patriots played a preseason game last night. Didn't watch it. I swear, on my son's PS4. We know how important that is. I don't know what the score is. And it's not that I don't care. It's just I'm not doing it yet, Joe. Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. Like the third preseason game is when your starters, like the first 2 preseason games, it's me and you out there playing, like a step or 2 above you. All right, maybe 10 steps above you and me.
Yes.
But 90% of the people wearing the uniforms, aren't going to be playing, come September. But the third or the fourth preseason game, you have your starters playing half of the game. Usually they'll play a half, maybe into the third quarter. And then the rest of that game in the fourth game, it's the people on the bubble. You got to cut down the 53-man roster, so you might have like 60, 65 guys on the roster, and it's kind of their last chance to shine. With that said, I'm liking things on Twitter when I see a funny Patriot thing, but I'm not diving in yet, not doing it.
Good for you. Showing a little restraint over there.
Which gives me time to focus on the U.S.-born foreign, plays basketball player who just got a 2-year ban by the International Basketball Federation for testing positive for being pregnant.
Go on.
Not a female basketball player.
Oh.
Yes.
Trans?
No. Submitted his girlfriend's urine for the drug test.
Joe!
Who he did not know was pregnant.
So it was a surprise on many levels.
Donnell DJ Cooper is the man's name, and it came across, one of the funny like sports things that I saw, and I'm gonna click on this and read this, and it, playing in Belgium or something.
That would probably not make Marv Albert's wacky bloopers reels from like the old Letterman days. What do you got for us, Marv?
Teeth marks in the back of a prostitute.
Is it going to be a boy? Yes.
So that's it on sport. I'm not really anything else that I can really think of, and not getting down the rabbit hole of the NFL just yet. So that brings us to everybody's favorite part of the week. Before we get into the random video game review, my little guy and I were talking about speaking of Spider-Man, Tom Hollis. Is it Hollis or Holland? Every time we see him do an interview, we all forget, oh, wait a minute, he's English. And my boys are impressed that they keep forgetting that. I guess he's been tagged to be Nathan Drake in the live-action Uncharted.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Which my youngest one is in love with Spider-Man now, but my oldest one last year for Halloween, last year went out as Papyrus. Sans and Papyrus they went out of from Undertales. But the year before that went out as Nathan Drake because he went through a big Uncharted thing.
We talked about the Nathan Fillion fan-made film, the 15-minute.
Which is pretty great.
Yeah, it was really well done.
So Tom Holland's going to be that. And it made me start to think, it's like, when you look at the Super Mario Brothers movie opposed to the last, video game becoming movies has become better. The movies, I think, are a lot better.
Detective Pikachu came out, and I guess it was okay.
It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's some goofy parts because you're talking about interspersing a Psyduck. Psyduck was a main character.
Mr. Mime.
Oh, that, and I don't know all the characters, but there's some that are just goofy. But it was, and I started to think, are these movies better because the people producing these and the people directing them grew up playing it? Like,
yes.
The people who made Super Mario Brothers, they were professional filmmakers.
They were like music video people too. I think they were. Didn't they do like Max Headroom or something like that?
Max Headroom was one of their big things.
Yeah. So, and they were a husband and wife directorial thing. And I've talked about this before. We've talked about this before. If you haven't seen it, and if you love to see documentaries about bad movies that have to do with video games, there's this guy called The Gaming Historian on YouTube who did a little 30-minute documentary spiel on the making of the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's worth checking out. A little on the dry side, but it's well done.
That guy himself, the Gaming Historian, he himself has gotten less dry. He's I think either more comfortable or just better with it.
Yeah.
But he's really smart. Every time you've said, hey, check out this link, it's like, this guy knows his shit.
Yeah, like he's an actual historian. Like he went to college to study to be like a real historian, and then like kind of did this little offshoot. So yeah, his stuff is good. But I do agree with you that like with comic book movies, like with video game movies, if you have a reverence and and also the technology has caught up with the imaginations.
Right.
You know, you're not stuck with these cheesy prosthetics and animatronics and puppetry. You know, you don't necessarily have to be Industrial Light and Magic to make these movies. And the other thing is that there are multiple ILMs now. Like, there's not just like one ILM that can bring this, you know, to do a Who Framed Roger Rabbit from like 1988. Like, that was a masterpiece in its time, you know, of its time. But today, yeah, you can have these types of movies. So I think, yeah, you and like we were talking about with JJ rebooting Star Wars and Star Trek. You know, he was basically a student of Spielberg and those
Right.
types of filmmakers, and of course, he grew up in pop culture with pop culture. So, you know, and at some point, like, new stuff hopefully will come along. By the way, I because we are sort of hitting the sort of terminal velocity when it comes to pop culture. Like, we're eating our own vomit eventually.
Yes. I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? It's just like, at some point, when do we stop referencing?
Well, you know, we'll talk a little bit about it again, but we've already mentioned like Stranger Things here, and like the whole plot point revolving around Back to the Future.
Yeah, it I don't know if there was a plot point, but it was just sort of like a little side thing, right? I mean,
But it was a big thing. I mean, it was a big part. I mean, they had actual. I mean, I bet the most expensive part of the production was getting the clips from those movies.
and as I was watching, when they're showing the ending, I turned to my wife and I go, "They better fucking cheer at the end of that movie." And then it's like, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." Da, 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 da. And they cut to the shot of the audience, and it's just like, God, I wish I was there. I wish I was in a movie theater in 1985 watching it for the first time.
You know what's?
If I had a DeLorean, that's what I would do. I would go back to 85 and watch Back to the Future in the theaters on July 3rd.
I was talking to Joe before this. Management and I looked at Airstreams today, and she had said, well, if I can't have a DeLorean, because she's always wanted a DeLorean and an Airstream, where she's like, this is more reasonable. Like, this is more. But the other thing, same thing, I already talked about Infinity War. How many times, because it was a lot of time traveling in Endgame, how much did they mention Back to the Future and Endgame?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, Back to the Future is just, I guess we'll touch, since we're talking about it, Back to the Future is really ingrained in our social consciousness now. Like, nobody that has seen Back to the Future hates Back to the Future. They can't, or either that or they are part of the Nazi Party. Like, there's something is wrong with that person if they don't like Back to the Future. It was such, and looking back on it now, I really do think Back to the Future was the Star Wars of the 80s. Think about it, like the culturally,
Yeah.
like think about the way and the feel and the look of movies in the early 80s. It's sort of dirty, grimy, grungy, like the way the comedies were.
It was a turning point.
And then the slick, cool, like just rad movie comes out about time travel that's nostalgic, and it's also a movie about nostalgia. You know, it's so like that in and of itself is sort of like the beginning of. Well, no, I can't say that because Happy Days, but that look, that feel, the way, that energy that Back to the Future brought to filmmaking and future films, you know, was indelible. You know?
No, I agree.
And so, so I think for my generation, as much, even though I grew up technically in the era of Star Wars, the way Back to the Future was received and absorbed by people from my generation, like that was our Star Wars. Like if you were like 8 years old watching it in the theater, like this is like, what? This is fucking awesome, you know? And then your mother would slap you over the head, say, "Don't say fuck." And but yeah. So, anyways, Back to the Future. Speaking of that, I kind of went back and watched parts 2 and 3 because I a few months ago bought a Back to the Future book. It's like the visual like compendium, or it's like the ultimate the ultimate book about Back to the Future. And it has like forewords by Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox and Bob Gale, who wrote it. And it has like all these little, you know, full page glossy photos, and it tells the story of each production, like week 1, week 2, week 3, like what they did filming each week of production. and it breaks it down, and it's really, really insightful. And it also has like little like reproductions of stuff from the movie. Like it'll have the letter that Marty wrote to Doc in Lou's Cafe, warning him about terrorists shooting him, and then putting it in the envelope.
Is it ripped up? Is it taped back together?
No, it's pre-ripped up.
Okay.
But it comes in the envelope, so you have to, and it's all taped to the actual page, so you have to be careful not to rip it off the page. So you have to open the envelope, pull the letter out of the envelope, and then read it, and then cry, and then put the envelope back in. It's a whole thing. But they have that sort of thing. So like as I was reading that, I was like inspired to not just, I didn't watch the first one because I had seen that so many fucking times. I was like, let me look at parts 2 and 3 again with a fresher eye. And yeah, it was interesting to see those movies, knowing what I had just read about the production of those movies. So I got back into that. And I also, speaking of Bob Gale, who wrote the movie, and Bob Zemeckis, who directed it, they directed and wrote, they made their big break. Not actually, their first big break was I Want to Hold Your Hand, which was from like 1978, about like the first, what was it, like the first Beatles concert or something like that. But Used Cars came out in 1980. Have you ever seen Used Cars?
I think I have. But
with Kurt Russell?
Yes.
And Jack Warden?
Yes.
I had never seen it before, but I found that if you download the Sony Crackle TV app, you can watch it unedited, but with commercial breaks. So it's a little funky. But yeah, I was watching that. I've never seen Used Cars for the first time, and it's an okay movie. It's got a lot of boobs, and it has Lenny and Squiggy.
Yes, that was supposed to be their big breakout.
Well, this is 1980, right? So it was like they were already stars.
No, but this was their transitioning into film,
right? And this is like 4 years before Spinal Tap for Michael McKean. But yeah. It was interesting to see these guys as like TV pirate guys that were trying to break into like a nationally televised or local. I think it was like a locally televised football game, so that they could put on this raunchy used car sales lot commercial with like, of course, there's like gratuitous boobies, like a big scene with gratuitous boobies, like this poor
woman.
Can't you
just say boobs?
No.
I mean, why do you have to diminish it by saying
boobies?
Gratuitous.
Oh, I thought you were objecting to boobies.
Do you know what I like about big boobs?
Big boobs.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. These weren't big boobs. These were
two boobs. That's what he takes us for.
These were 80s boobs. So I was So I've been on a kind of a Bob Gale, Bob Zemeckis kind of run. I'm going to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit next, which had nothing to do with Bob Gale. But anyways, I'm ranting and raving.
But you were talking about pulp culture turning in on itself.
Yeah,
imploding at one point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so right. So even though we do like this sort of self-referential this climate of referencing nostalgia, at some point we do need to create our own identity, or this generation has to come up with things that future generations will then look back on and make reference to.
Well, we've gone, we're into the woods on this one, but I think, one of the reasons that may or may not happen is because, as we talked about so many times, there was only so many movies back then. Only a few movies came out every summer. I don't like the movie Grease. I've seen it at least 40 times.
You're right. Well, because it was at the drive-in.
It was always, or it was on one of the 3 stations, 4 if you count PBS.
Right.
So we all knew. Did all of us love Small Wonder? No, but there weren't a lot of other options.
Can all of us sing all the words to Small Wonder?
Not all of us can, Joe. 50% of the people on this podcast can and have done so beautifully. No, but that's one of those things. It's like everything is so fractured and fragmented. It will have to be making pop culture references to Iron Man, to Infinity War, to
big blockbuster movies, and also like reality TV.
Well,
kind of
depends on Well, but that's what do you mean? It's like. Yes, it's surprising me how much my wife used to watch like MTV, like into her late 30s, watching Rules and Jersey Shore and stuff like that. But I mean, I want to. Well, no, I would get if you mentioned a couple of the big names. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see when you move on from, and that was when you move on from the tropes that we already beat to the ground. But it was funny at the end of Stranger Things, there was one scene where. it was almost like the writers got together and said, okay, this is our last scene from this season. How many pop culture references can we get into this last conversation in the video store? Right. Like how many, Fast Times that were, that whole thing. But it was interesting. But with that said, it might even be a sideshow to talk about. Before we get into the random video game review of the week, this week I played very little, Resident Evil 2. I beat it on the easy mode and on the main mode. Unlocked a lot of stuff. Unlocked the outfits that it's like, there's two girls, and one of them is urban cowboy and one of them is urban ninja outfits.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, what do these look like? And then when the game started and I was with my 9-year-old, he's like, well, that's just stupid. I'm like, yeah, dude, that is just stupid. That doesn't look anything like a ninja. No, dude, it doesn't. It's like short shorts and it's like
sexy ninja.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm going to stop, put the old cautions back. Anyways, but I was going to talk to you, Joe. We might be going cold turkey on video games for a while at the household.
Well, because the president said so.
Yes. No, with school starting, it's got a little. Since we've done our road trip, one of my two kids is making up for lost time, and doesn't think, and they will. He will get to the point one day where he'll be like, oh my God, we went on this amazing road trip and we did all these things. Right now, he's still in the stage. I was gone for 30 days without my PS4. I'm going to make up for all the lost time. And management and I are like, he's got 2 more weeks of, and we either might go back to just on Saturday, or let's
stop.
Let's stop until maybe the new year, maybe Christmas. Yeah. And that means all of us. Whew. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Tell me what it's like back in the dark ages.
But it's one of those things where we, had a meeting with, council this week, and we're like, I don't want to say it's an addiction yet, but it's an addiction.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't want to say guns are the problems with these mass shootings.
Right.
It's the guns.
Yeah, but yeah, with him, it's like we were on the strip, we're at Disney, and he was asking, okay, so he bought this download pack, this summer pack for, I think it was a Fortnite thing that expired in like a month, and he got it like a week before we left. So he was literally one day we're at Disney, and we was trying to calculate in his head how long we're home, leaving Los Angeles, driving across the country, and how many days he'll get to play that bonus pack before it expires.
Yeah, both my boys' bedrooms are opium dens to video games. I mean, I'm a real shitty father. I don't beat my kids, but I ignore them.
And let me stop you there. You're a shitty person, and then under the subcategory.
Yes, that's right.
But it's hard because it's like,
no, it's not.
It is, and it's like we have a pool, and it's this week there was a couple really muggy days that one of the little guys was, yep, I'm putting on the swims and we're getting out there. The other one I had to drag, and he has to do aquatic therapy 2 or 3 days a week, and he has to be outside doing this, not to play. And even with that, even it was to get him out there to negotiate him being outside in his backyard. It's like, dude, you see all these other people from our town who are happy to be over here using a pool, and it's in your backyard. So we're really thinking about just completely going cold turkey.
It might be a good idea. I mean, if they're exhibiting signs of addiction, and seriously, yeah, maybe you're going to go through the DTs. It's going to be 30 days of fucking misery, I'm sure. But I think over the long run, over the next few months, you might see a change in their attitude and maybe an improvement in their biochemistry, essentially.
Right. The sleep patterns.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Because look, and I'm a little torn because we always used to say, it's like, when we lived in LA and he was like 5 or 6, and wife and I are night owls, and he would be up at like 1 a.m, like watching, something with us, and my mom would visit, goes, he should really be in bed. It's like, he's not working in the morning, but now that he is working in the morning, now that he does have school,
it's a bad habit.
It's a really bad, and we're not sure what time he'll be starting this year, but his brother went to school an hour and like 15 minutes before him last year. So I would leave the house to go take his brother. He would get up at the same time and play games for an hour, and not be ready to go. And there's not a lot of time after school and during the week because they have sports and stuff and tutors. But yeah, so we're really either thinking, okay, we're going to be fanatically, it's just on Saturdays or Sundays, depending if we have something to do. We'll budget out a block of time, and if that's your one thing. But we're also thinking about just saying, okay, you know what, as a family, and that also means the tough thing will be that means no Tetris on the phone. Mm-hmm. That means I can't say you're not going to have your PS3 and Overwatch and Fortnite, but I'm going to sit here with Tetris for the next hour. So
yeah, you got to delete those apps.
Right. Across the board.
Well,
so,
if those games need a home to stay,
you see how thoughtful you are.
I'm here to help.
Don't be a careless person.
Be a care more person.
Now, can we do the video review of the week?
Sure.
We have a guest.
Like Bob Hope walking on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Wow, who's that over there?
Not Bob Hope.
Steve Martin.
No, who was Sergeant Bilko?
Oh, yeah. What? Oh,
not Sergeant Bilko.
You're talking about Don Rickles.
Don Rickles. What was that show?
What are you talking about?
What was the show that he had that was taped right next door to Carson?
CPO Sharky.
Right, and he would sometimes just walk, or the best was when Carson walked onto the taping
of CPO Sharky next door.
And when Don Rickles introduced him.
Right. They know who I am.
Squish. Go grab a video. Go grab a Nintendo video.
Anything, any game, anything on this shelf over here.
So my little guy decided to come and walk into the studio, the Lyceum, the Nerd Cave, which is a no-no during recording. So before I hit him,
yeah, I'm not paying attention. I'm going la 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 because I'm not supposed to know what game you play. It's a surprise. It's a PS3 game.
It is a PS3 game.
I think I had that game.
That's a good clue. That's a great clue.
He has it. He's never played it.
I'm going to say, what is it? Is it? Oh, it's. Gosh, come on, man! Pull something out of that hat of yours. Is it? It's. I don't have a lot of PS3 games, so you would think this would just roll off the tongue. It is the. I can't imagine what it would be. I got to stop vamping. What is it? Oh, NHL 14.
Have you ever played it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's an NHL game. It's by EA Sports. It's in the game. It's no NHL 94. This is the 20th anniversary. I like to call this 20th anniversary edition of NHL 94.
That's what you were playing during the Stanley Cup last year. You had the two screens going.
I did. I was watching the game on the TV and playing NHL 94 for Genesis on the old CRT. It's just an NHL game. It's obviously more realistic looking than NHL 94. It's this is 6 years outdated now.
I will give you $100 if you tell me who's on the cover.
That, my friend, is
without reading the name.
That is a New Jersey Devil, and his name is Guy Gilbert.
So looking online, it has a metric score of 80.
You're not going to give me the answer.
That's
isn't so easy.
Yeah, like now that I
the lights are on you.
Martin Brodeur.
Probably
yes, the greatest goalie.
And I know how to spell his name.
Oh, do you?
Martin.
Look at you,
Martin Brodeur. I remember Martin Brodeur.
Honestly, I probably, Biff could speak better about this. For my money, it's him or Patrick Roy, the greatest goalie, probably ever. Yeah. Because when you had the Ken Drydens and stuff like that, the butterfly hadn't. But then again, Patrick Roy was the creme de la creme when it came to the butterfly. Martin Brodeur was kind of old school stand up. Completely different styles, but I give the nod to Martin Brodeur.
I remember. I trust me. I had actually seen games with him in the goal, and he is good.
I mean, the New Jersey Devils were famous for 1-0, 2-1.
Yes, they invented that sort of
The trap.
The trap, yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, yeah, the '90s,
and just grind a game
Yeah.
to.
and of course,
Which is awful hockey unless you like the team. Then it was great.
unless you like winning Stanley Cups.
Yeah, thank you. So let's see. So the metric score is an 80. GameStop gave it a 4.3 out of 5, and IGN an 8.3 out of 10. You
Yeah, I guess it's. I mean, I really haven't I haven't played this much. Although, gotta enjoy this. Look who's fighting in that little window over there on the back of the box. Which teams are those?
it would be.
Is it the Penguins?
The Toronto
Bruins.
Maple Leafs
And the Boston
the
Bruins.
Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs, much like the Titanic, they look fantastic. They hit the ice.
I'm not kidding when I say this. It's a small little inset on the back of this game box that I wanted to see the picture of, and I wanted to zoom in on the person's jersey. So I literally almost swiped open with, like, I almost did this with the. I tried to spread my fingers across it to zoom in. I'm in that deep when it comes to technology.
It's interesting. So I'm looking how much this cost.
94 cents.
Well, here's the interesting thing. It's one website, so it could be a lot different. NHL 15, $8. NHL 12, $8.95. NHL 13, $4.99. NHL 2014, $35. I don't know why.
Jesus.
And it's the one that you have. And if they have different covers,
It must be signed by Martin Brodeur.
right, exactly. That's really interesting. Why it would jump?
Either that or that person does not know anything about pricing video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Is there one video game that they have, like that they bought?
Their mom was cleaning out, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, these must be."
Right. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to be rich. Did you hear, by the way, it made the news. There was this sealed copy of Nintendo's Kid Icarus game that was found in somebody's attic, sold for $9,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's good. And it's
But I don't see it on your shelf.
right. I guess it's because those, sealed copies of like newer Nintendo games are probably more common, or like the bigger name games. But Kid Icarus is an original Nintendo game, like from the original kind of like series of games that they put out. That is harder. It's not as prominent as like a Super Mario Brothers. So finding a sealed box of that is less common than finding, say, a sealed Zelda or something like that. Anyways, $9,000. This is not $9,000.
That brings us to what you've been watching, and I think you covered it. Is it this week that you've watched
The Back to the Future.
Back to the Future?
Yeah, I watched that, and I'll briefly. Did you see what happened in the late night landscape last night, which is Thursday night to us?
Did not.
A certain person appeared on 6 different late night shows on the same night.
Who?
Ron Burgundy.
Did he really?
Yeah, so his second season of the Ron Burgundy podcast. It dropped yesterday, and to celebrate, Will Ferrell made a guest appearance at the top of every one of those shows, from the Tonight Show to Colbert.
Pre-recorded, or did he just drive around New York City?
I question that because it seemed as though he did a lot of this stuff live, like on the day of taping. I think. And
That's awesome.
Do you remember when Will Ferrell went cross country? Like he played different field positions at baseball games.
Yes.
And that was a pretty astounding feat. Like he traveled literally across the country. Like he played like first base in a day game in Boston or New York or something, and then he flew across the country, and then they played like another like night game with the Dodgers or something like that. But he made a stop
different position
along the way.
at every park.
Yeah, on the same day.
Same day.
Yeah, so this is sort of like in that same breath. But he also appeared not only on the Kimmel and Fallon and Colbert, but he also appeared on Seth Meyers.
Daily Show.
I don't know about the Daily Show, but James Corden, and there's one other that's escaping me, but because I thought I saw 6. But yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he was doing his stand-up comedy, like on at least. And I knew this was happening. Like there was supposed to be a surprise guest. Like they weren't publicizing this, but I had heard about it through the rumor mill on Twitter. And last night I was like, oh, let me see if I can do the channel flip to see the 3 different Ron Burgundy segments. And so he started on Fallon, and then the next one that I saw was Colbert, and then the next one was Kimmel. And the Kimmel Colbert, he's just like doing stand-up routine.
It's funny and sad. This is the second Ron Burgundy reference today because management and I were talking about the teleprompter stuff we were talking about earlier, and the person who has trouble reading the teleprompter, I'm like, so he's Ron Burgundy now. Go fuck yourself, San Diego, because, I'm Ron Burgundy.
Right.
If it says it up there, I guess.
Actually, the person that can't read the teleprompter is worse than Ron Burgundy because at least Ron Burgundy reads the teleprompter. He didn't say go F yourself, San Toledo. San Toledo. 2, 3, 4. Walked right into the propeller.
Right into the propeller.
You're all under arrest.
Do you have a parenting tip? 2, 3, 4. I am the word. I am the light. So I guess I'll go first. Getting back to talking about going cold turkey with games, we've all discovered that Louis C.K. is a piece of shit, but doesn't mean that some of his stand up from before wasn't accurate and funny. And talking about the family going cold turkey, I often think about when he was talking about parents complaining how much their kids play video games and then pointing out, oh, did your 6-year-old fucking buy that $500 system? So you bought it. This is a hellscape of your own creation. So I'm kind of thinking that's what I'm going to, I'm trying to remind myself. It's like, before I get that upset about the oldest one being at Disney, the happiest place on the world, and Southern California worrying about getting home to Boston to play his game. It's like, yes, I'm the one that bought that battle pack. So maybe if I didn't want him to be such a spaz about it, maybe I shouldn't buy it so much.
I believe it was Maya Angelou who said, "You all right? I learned it by watching you."
So that's my parenting tip. If you go ahead and you buy all the shit for them, it's kind of like if you don't vote, you can't complain about this shit. Well, if you go out and you buy all the drugs and you leave it on the table in front of them after doing it yourself, don't be such a douche.
Yeah, don't be surprised. Yep. You reap what you sow, as they say. So, speaking of sowing, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening to Carnival Personnel. It was a fun ride. We had a blast.
Every time.
A boy can dream. A boy can dream. So this is the end.
This is the end.
My only friend, the end. That's all I know. See, the Doors had no bass. The Gypsies had no homes. But, you'll probably get more of this. I'm sure we'll do a sideshow at some point, but whatevs, man. Who gives a crap? Nobody cares. We don't sideshow schmideshow. We don't need no stinking sideshows. We don't need any front shows. What are we talking about? But tell your friends. Actually, don't tell anybody. This is just our little secret, you and me. All right? Just don't tell your parents, because if you tell them, I will kill you. Do you hear me? I will kill you. If you tell one soul about what we talked about here, I will find your house, open the door forcefully, go up to your room where you sleep at night, and murder you.
That's because you play video games.
Don't forget,